So my name is Disha. I go to school at MIT. I'm from the United States. My major, I study computer science and engineering and mathematics. And I'm going to be a junior this year. So actually, like this summer, I knew that I wanted to go abroad just because of COVID and all those. Like I really hadn't left the country in 10 years. It's been a long time. And I was just like, my school has this study abroad, an internship abroad program called MISTI, and they basically have program coordinators in a lot of different areas of the world. And I knew that I wanted to go to South Asia because my parents are from South Asia and I haven't been back in 10 years, which is the last time I left the country. And so I was predominantly looking at South Asia, and the two countries that my program offered were India and Nepal. And I was just honestly looking at the opportunities that both countries had to offer, and I just found the ones in Nepal more meaningful based on what I was looking for. And in particular, Gurzu stood out to me because it kind of combined my interest in computer science, and then also it had a meaningful social impact because I was helping to develop this app that connected farmers with consumers, and it was just honestly something that I found really meaningful. So I decided to reach out, and yeah, now I'm here. Okay, so I'll start with Nepal. I was so excited to come here, the moment I found out that I would be coming, and honestly, leading up to the entire, the flight, the trip, just coming, I was incredibly excited. And then it finally hit me, when I got to the hostel that I was staying at, they showed me the room, they were like, here is where you're gonna be staying. I'm like, I'm staying here. Oh wow. And I think it just really sunk in that moment that oh my gosh, I'm gonna be here and I'm actually here. So it was definitely a little bit scary at first, but also really exciting. I was just very excited the entire time. Actually, I came to Gurzu for the first time the Friday before I started work. It was the first time I left my hostel. I was so scared just because I don't know, it was just a little bit of a culture shock because I hadn't been ever to Nepal, and been a long time since I left the country, as I mentioned. So honestly, just even walking to to the office, because I live around 20 minutes away from here, I was just oh my god, is some car gonna come and run me over? But I got here, and then the moment I kind of stepped foot, it just seemed a really cool place. Just I didn't know anything about it, just seemed really I don't know, it had good vibes coming from it. And then I met Kamaldai for the first time, and he was just the sweetest, and immediately kind of told me a little bit about the company culture, and just put me at ease immediately. And honestly, ever since I started coming here, on day one of the internship, everybody's just been the sweetest, and it's just been absolutely wonderful. Gurzu in particular, I think, has made my Nepal experience really memorable, and it's definitely something that I will be holding close to me for the rest of my life, honestly. Not to sound cheesy, but okay, so as I was mentioning, I kind of got assigned the project of creating an app, developing an app that connects farmers in Nepal more directly with their consumers. This is kind of a pretty big issue in Nepal because well, I'm sure you would know, but this is new to me. I learned a lot from just the first week of research, and so on and so forth. Agriculture is such a big part of Nepal's industry, so it's important to make sure that farmers are actually getting the value from the produce that they're selling. So that was essentially what my project was, and Kamaldai and my mentors wanted me to get the experience of the whole software development cycle, which was very exciting because I'd never experienced anything like this. So I got to kind of own every part of the project, from just the research to developing an MVP, figuring out what's going to go in it, to product design, low fidelity, high fidelity, a lot of terms that I'd never heard of before. I kind of was just guided through the entire process, and then I got to work on both the front end and the back end of the app, which is really cool. And yeah, it was just a really cool experience, just because it took a lot of the things that I'd covered in different classes in college, and sort of put them together, and just kind of merged everything into one collective deliverable that I would be making. So I absolutely love my mentors. I think my mentors were the people who shaped my experience the most, because I was working really closely with them throughout the entire internship. They never basically left me alone in like a good way, like in just like they were always there for me whenever I needed it. Like they let me do everything on my own, but like I could always go to them when I had questions, and they were always willing to guide me, like regardless of like if it had been the 20th time that I'd asked them the same question over and over again. Honestly, like, so I had different mentors actually like almost every week until the last couple of weeks when I was coding. I had a different mentor for like every part of the project, and it was honestly really cool. Just like it allowed me to like meet a lot of people first in Nepal, like you know, at the workplace. It allowed me to like get to know them even on a personal level and in a professional setting, and then also just like everybody was just so welcoming, and it honestly just made my entire experience. So honestly, like ever since like day one, I remember like being really scared, really intimidated to like come to work on day one, because like this is even my first internship experience. So, like I really wasn't sure what to expect, and I got here and like I was like 20 minutes late, but like I got here like 8:45 or something, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be so screwed. Everybody will hate me. And like I got here, nobody made like a big fuss about anything, obviously, and like I just kind of like sat down, and Kamaldai greeted me. Like he greeted me like honestly the moment I walked in. And then I was just like sitting at this like table. I was a little bit scared to interact with people at the beginning, because like it was just a very new environment and I wasn't really sure what I was doing. But then literally like I think 20 people came up to me on day one itself and just like said hi, introduced themselves, just like kind of made me feel welcome just from on day one itself. Like I honestly like it definitely like gave me like a really like strong positive impression of the company and just of Nepal on the whole, because that was like my first interaction with like people outside of my hostel in Nepal. So that definitely like honestly had a big impact on just kind of like my perception of working here. And then also like we just had a lot of fun events at the company throughout. Everybody made me feel like really welcome. As I mentioned, we had like the Shravan event. Shravan's like one of the months of the year, and on the first day all of the women at the office basically gathered and we like did mehendi and had karaoke, and it was a lot of fun. We also had like chatpate. Like this is the first time I got to eat chatpate. We like all just made chatpate at some point at work and ate it, and that was like it was so yummy. Like I was so full, and people like kept trying to get me to eat it, and I finally tried it, and I was like, holy, this is so good. And it was just so amazing. And then also like basically every day for work, at lunch, I usually don't bring lunch because my hostel like provides lunch, but it's like they won't be able to like give it to me on time. So I essentially like eat out for lunch every day, and that's just something that people generally do. A lot of people here, and like honestly every single day of like the first like week, 2 weeks that I was here, like a new group of people would take me out and then always treat me to lunch. Like literally nobody would let me pay, and I was like, oh my gosh, please let me pay, please. But it was just like honestly like lunch was a big part of like honestly my day, and like how I got to like meet and talk to people, and I learned a lot about everybody. I basically I think had lunch at some point with like at least 2/3 of the office, so it was definitely like a lot of fun. Lunch was an integral part of my like social experience at work, for sure. Like it actually had like a really big impact, because at college you kind of learn about a lot of different like areas of computer science, and there's always just like you learn about a lot of things in depth, but like you never really see how any of those things connect together. And this was like the first time that like I actually got to put a lot of the things that I learned and a lot of the things that I didn't and I had to learn here, I got to learn here, and like just put it into like one major project. And that was really cool, because like we had like software architecture, we had like actually coding, like product design, like how do we make everything accessible to people, like actually researching things. Like there was just so many different components of what I'd learned in school, and we just kind of like put everything together, and that was definitely really cool. And I also just got to learn like 2 new languages, because we like did the front end and the back end in different languages, and I hadn't used either of them before, so it was definitely like a huge learning experience. And I also like got to learn about like how things work in a professional setting, because like I mentioned, this is my first like sort of internship, so I definitely learned a lot just on like a professional level and on a technical level. Absolutely. First of all, like just coming to like a different country, like even if you're like from like the United States, like that was just really exciting. Like getting to meet like new people, like interacting with the new culture. Lots of really good food. I ate so much food, and then also just like just the company here is just so supportive, so like willing, and like honestly, their biggest goal is to make sure that you learn, and they're willing to do basically anything to make sure that you learn. Willing to support you at any capacity, and it was just like I grew so much because of this internship, and I would definitely like recommend it to anybody who is interested. Honestly, I think that I could gush about my experience here for like hours, because like it was just like honestly so impactful, and I made a lot of really good friends here. People I'll definitely be keeping in touch with when I go back, and it was just like honestly like this whole summer has been like one of those like core memories. Like I know I'm going to be like keeping this with me for like the rest of my life, so I'm really grateful I had this opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.